evening. With our series for these interviews, we already had our nurse coming from Oman. We also interviewed a nurse coming from Abu Dhabi who was Miss Maurice Lumaktud. And now we are going to interview Sir Luise Besa.
Hi.
He is one of the most active, most dedicated nurses that I have ever known. He is one of the admins of Lefora, a very huge group of nurses for those who are interested of going to the USA. So it's really a pleasure to have you tonight, Sir Luise. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation to interview you.
Thank you so much to Miss Rachel.
So we will not be talking about USA this time because I want to share to our viewers regarding like life in Saudi Arabia. How is it being a nurse in Saudi Arabia? So can you tell us a bit about your background before you went to Saudi Arabia, Sir Luise? Where were you coming from?
I graduated in nursing. That was year 2006. It was June 2006 when I took the local board and passed, but unfortunately we were the infamous batch. We were the infamous batch because we are marred with the leakage issue. So I had to do the retake exam with a test 3 and test 5 examination per CGFNS memo, because according to the CGFNS, they were not going to accept nurses who took the June 2006 local boards unless they do the retake for the test 3 and test 5. So fortunately, I took the test and passed. And then regarding my experience, I never had experience in the Philippines, actually. My aunt who is working here asked me to send my resume, so she will send it to the hospital who is accepting nurses who don't have experience at that time. They're still accepting. And fortunately, I got here. So that's the story.
Wow, back then the experience wasn't required yet. But now they already need at least like 1 year of clinical experience for one to like be acceptable or eligible for the examination. So what were your stereotypes before, Sir Luise? So were you like afraid somehow that Saudi Arabia is like unknown to you? Were you concerned about your safety concerns? Because some of us has a lot of stereotypes when we hear about, oh, someone is going to Saudi Arabia. So back then, what were your concerns?
I was very anxious that time because people say that Saudi Arabia is very strict in terms of rules and regulations, how they implement the rules and regulations here. So I was really anxious that time, and I really don't know about the cultures and traditions. And that time I never used internet yet. So I have no idea. Di pa uso. So they say I should stay away from ladies because that time, of course, I was still unmarried. So I should stay away from ladies and talking with them because they might punish us, something like that. So it's about the culture that made me anxious that time. But from when I got here, I get used to it. I learned their cultures and I learned to know how people do the usual things here. So I feel like this is my new home.
So far, you like your stay, but how long have you been there already in Saudi Arabia, Sir Luise? You started in 2006?
No, it's more than a decade. Actually, when I graduated last 2006, I had like 1 year rest, something like that, because I was still waiting for that board examination issue, because that time it was still unclear. They were discussing in the Court of Appeals, in the Supreme Court, that we have to retake and then they have to retract again, that no need for retaking. So it was still vague. So that time I was still waiting for the right time that I need to have to settle it before I do the next move, before I need to apply to hospitals to work. So that's it.
So nung natanggap ka na, Sir Luise, was it still the same hospital that you first were initially deployed, or nag-change ka na ng hospital ngayon?
I never changed. I
never changed.
You're
so loyal
to this hospital. Actually, I'm satisfied with my work.
That's really good. So you mentioned to me that you were an ICU nurse. So back then, like immediately ICU nurse ba yung assignment mo, or were you assigned in another department?
So when I got here in Saudi Arabia, my job offer was staff nurse 3. It's not a bedside nurse. It's actually a like assistant nurse. You have to assist those primary nurse handling the patients in ICU. So when I got here, I was already in ICU. But then after 2 or 3 years, I got promoted to staff nurse too. So that time I was able to handle patients from the time until now. I got promoted to other position, but it's still on bedside,
Bedside
handling
pa rin.
patients.
But knowing that you have been serving your hospital for more than a decade, wow, that's really amazing. Like, wow, what a loyal nurse you are. So, Sir Luis, na-deploy ka ba by a certain recruitment agency, or it was just through the help of your aunt that you were like directly na-recruit coming from Philippines to Saudi Arabia?
So my aunt sent my resume to the hospital, and fortunately I got the job offer. And I processed my papers in Saudi recruitment office. It's in Makati.
Oh, I
I
see.
think you're familiar with that one.
Yes, I am familiar. Although,
Yes.
when I was deployed, it was by a certain recruitment agency and hindi kami doon sa parang government talaga. So, that was really good kasi kapag government kasi, you will expect na more yung benefits nila, mas maganda yung benefits nila compared with the private hospitals. So, when you were starting, Sir Luis, what were your challenges back then?
My challenges, first and foremost, is the language.
Language.
Because I never really had an idea about the Arabic language, so I had to learn like ABCD. So how to count from 1 to 10, because you have to communicate with locals. It's very important, it's very essential to learn Arabic language, even though most of the people here are speaking English already, but you still have to know, because from time to time you have to encounter people who really don't know how to speak in English. So we have to speak at least a few words. That you should have to meet some certain level of fluency in Arabic to communicate with people, especially if you're talking to the relatives or to the watchers in the hospital. You have to explain how you're going to give the medication, what's the plan for the patients. At least you know how to speak in Arabic.
I also experienced that kind of struggle because when I was deployed in Saudi Arabia, so I was working as a ICU nurse, and then I was transferred to the ER nurse because I have L4, L5 herniation in my back. So I was transferred to ER, and then it was very difficult because I cannot communicate. And then I was just saying that I am a new nurse. Ano mo, malum Arabic. So it was really very difficult. So for those new nurses or any medical professional who will be deployed to Saudi Arabia, what would you suggest them to do? Should they learn a little bit of Arabic somehow?
While they're still in the Philippines, they should at least search on the internet about the culture, tradition, and also the religion, because it's almost analogous. I mean, it goes side by side. I mean, the culture and tradition and rules and regulations and religion, it's like only a one way. And then they also have to learn a little bit of language, Arabic language. At least they know how to count from 1 to 10 and how they say left or right or straight, because once they get into the airport, they have to instruct the driver if you're going to the left or right, because your hospital already has like a map or guide for you when you're going to the hospitals once you get from the airport. So it's like you have to learn a little bit of language, and of course you have to take prometric exams. Some of the hospitals, they require you to take prometric exam once you get here, and other hospitals, they hire nurses who already passed the prometric exam. So it's very important taking prometric exam, and of course IPASS Processing will help you assist for you to take the prometric exam.
Yeah, I believe the recruitment agencies are now requiring that they should have their prometric examination. That's why we in IPASS, we are assisting this to our clients who want to go to Saudi Arabia. So let's talk about your work, Sir Luis. So how was it? Was it very difficult or was it challenging? So what's the nature of the things that you do?
At first, when I got here, it's really challenging, despite the fact that it's a new environment. You have to get used to it with the cultures in Saudi Arabia. So regarding the work, it's about adjustment, about the equipments that you're going to use in the hospital. Because unlike in the Philippines, we know that we're not that advanced, especially in the province where I came from. So I need to get used to it. I need to familiarize with the equipment and the facilities.
So when you were still new, Sir Luis, how were you able to balance life as well as work?
There are older staffs here when I got here, so I asked them how do they cope up with the things here. So they go outside just to unwind, to stroll around, and that's how we do it.
So if you're going to promote Saudi Arabia to those who are still medical professionals who want to go to Saudi Arabia, what are the good things that you want to share with them? Why do they have to choose Saudi Arabia based on your experience?
Before, Saudi Arabia still has no tax. I mean, your salary is tax free. But nowadays in Saudi Arabia, they already imposed 5% tax in VAT. So, but the commodities are still cheap. That's what I notice here. It's still cheap compared to the other countries.
What are other things that you want to share with them aside from less tax? Aside from the salary, what are other things that would be beneficial for them?
Other benefits that they will get is that if you're a lady, you will have a special accommodation. So it's full of facilities. You will have a special sports facilities. It's fully equipped. It's really like you will feel special for the boys.
Okay, continue.
We are staying outside. We are live out because we should not be mingling with the girls. It's about the culture. So they are paying us a housing allowance and transportation allowance.
So it depends on you already as to which accommodation you want to get. So based from the allowance that they were giving you, or are they the ones who will choose, or is it the hospital that's going to choose your accommodation, or it's up to you?
No, it's up to me. That's why most of the Filipinos here, we are sharing with the flat or the apartment, so we'll have to pay less. And
okay, that's good.
We'll spare some money.
Yeah, of course, syempre, pag pupunta tayo sa labas, of course, in as much as we can tipid our money, we will really do. Kasi, practically speaking, we go out of the country para kumita ng pera. Diba?
Tama.
So, Sir Luise, thank you very much for that insight. Isn't it that you already passed the NCLEX? And thank you very much for choosing IPASS Processing on your NCLEX examination. And we are really very proud of your success. And even now, you are actively recommending IPASS Processing to your friends. And a lot of your friends have already signed up with IPASS Processing. And thank you very much for your recommendation. So, Sir Luise, as an NCLEX passer, ano yung pwede mong very special tips na pwede mong i-share to our viewers? If they are a nurse, so it might be helpful for them as well.
For nurses like me who are working here in Saudi Arabia, my advice to you is if during your off, you allot a time for review, at least 5 hours during your off. So you will at least learn something and it will accumulate. What else?
So you would recommend na only on their day off lang sila mag-study instead of after duty, mag-take time to study. So, hindi mo yan nare-recommend?
I don't recommend studying right after your duty because we are already exhausted at work. So, we need to rest mentally, physically, and also emotionally. That's why I advise everyone to spare or allot time only for review. The perfect time is during the day off.
Kasi nga, naka-rest na yung mind mo. At least makaka-absorb siya ng mabilis na information. So, what are those books or recommended review materials that you also want to recommend to our viewers?
I highly recommend Saunders because that's the book that I read. It's very detailed. If you have enough time, maybe if you're planning to take NCLEX after 9 months or a year, that's a perfect book for you because it's very detailed. And if you're about to take the NCLEX maybe 3 months or 2 months prior taking NCLEX, I advise that you will use UWorld. UWorld is like a simulation and how you will take the exam during the NCLEX examination. It's almost the same. So it's like a test-taking strategy that you will get used to it when you're going to take the examination.
So for how long did you prepare for your NCLEX, Sir Luise?
For how long? I started processing my NCLEX during maybe more than 2 years ago, but there was a problem with my processing agency. That's why I transferred to IPASS Processing. So it happened that there was a problem with my CGFNS documents. So it took time for them to fix. That's why I took some rest. I just fed up about the news that there's problem with your CGFNS. So I told to myself that maybe yung nga parang pahinga muna ako kasi baka hindi talaga to para sa akin. But luckily, I transferred to IPASS. Everything went smoothly. That's why I'm so thankful to the IPASS Processing family, especially to you, to Miss Jean Oliver also. Yes, so from that time, it was smooth sailing. So when I got my eligibility, I immediately paid my ATT with the help of Miss Jean Oliver, and it was last November 2018. So I only had 3 months preparation, or less than 3 months preparation. So I had to review with UWorld, and that's it. I took the exam and I made it. I took the exam in New Delhi. It was tough, really, because I know to myself that I never studied well due to lack of time.
So what do you think helped you the most? Is it UWorld that helped you the most, or both of the books that you were recommending? UWorld in combination with Saunders?
I may say in combination. Actually,
Okay.
I didn't finish the Saunders, but I still recommend it to everyone because it's really detailed. But for the UWorld, I also didn't finish the UWorld. I still have more than 800 questions and I never finished to answer. And maybe luckily, I passed the test.
So US is really for you. Now, you are already on your way. Like, konting steps na lang, and then you will already be there. We are very proud of what you have done and what you have achieved. And knowing that you are one of the admins of Lefora, managing this huge group of nurses, made us really very proud of you, Sir Luis. And definitely, it will continue when you will be in the US. So, magko-continue pa rin yan. So, isa ka sa mga like inspirations ng mga nurses, Filipino nurses. And thank you very much for your big heart for these nurses, and thank you for everything that you are doing for everyone. So,
You're very
salamat,
welcome po.
Sir Luis, sa oras mo. Salamat sa time. And thank you very much for this insight regarding Saudi Arabia. So for those, anyone who want to go to Saudi Arabia, you have already heard it, the benefits that you can get also in Saudi Arabia, and it's a very safe country.
Yeah, and I would like to apologize also to other nurses who are messaging me sometimes. Hindi ko na kayang ma-replyan lahat kasi sobrang dami nila. I cannot read my inbox one by one. Kung sino mag-pop up doon, yun ang mini-message ko. Kaya I apologize talaga. Sometimes they're asking about the NCLEX, sometimes they're asking about Saudi Arabia. But yun nga, di ko na rin nakayanan kasi it's already swamped, flooded na talaga. Di ko na kayang basahin isa-isa. And also, I'm also busy at work. Sensya na.
Yeah, there's no problem with that. Sometimes we also have to balance our life and those being connected with social media. Salamat, but we know that you are really doing your best, Sir Luis. And thank you very much for everything that you have done. So salamat sa oras mo, Sir Luis. Bye! Thank you!
Bye-bye.